Hi. All right. It's all over to you, Michael.
Hi, thanks, Norbert. I'm Michael Hong. I'm the program director for BNK Fintech Lab, based in. Actually, the program runs itself in two locations: one in Seoul as well as one in Busan, where the BNK Financial Holding, which is a bank holding company for two regional banks in Korea, are based. So let me kind of walk you through the quick rundown on the BNK Fintech Lab, and then I'll take some questions. The BNK Fintech Lab actually started with three main objectives. One is as a regional bank for promoting local fintech industry, they want to be a good corporate citizen. So they were trying to stimulate and incubate some of the local startups based in Busan, which is, as you know, second largest city in Korea, but due to the sort of the mega trend, which is basically the cities are getting bigger, the Seoul represents only about 1/5 of the population, but about 50 to 60% of national GDP is all coming from Seoul. So Busan has been struggling to maintain its relevance with respect to attracting global talents. And so as a way to do so, they are trying to stimulate and incubate some of the local startups in the Busan and Gyeongnam and Ulsan area. So there was one objective. Another objective was to look for some opportunities to tie up with innovative digital financial service players in order for them to explore and collaborate on some of the commercial opportunities that is with the local fintech players. And then thirdly, by doing so, hopefully they will be able to leverage some of the core competence of the fintech companies in order for them to become more innovative in the dealing with the ever shifting and more digital trends in Korea. There are three sort of main legs in the what this BNK Fintech Lab offers, and one is certainly first as an accelerator. We help the startups to identify and accelerate their growth opportunities. We tend to push the startups to look for opportunities not only in their current business areas, but also beyond the horizons by tying up with a number of other accelerators around the region in the Asia Pacific region, and also we also are tying up with group BNK group companies, which I'll explain to you who they are a little short later. In terms of the first of all investment opportunities to fund their growth, and number two, in terms of by tying up on some of the collaborative efforts, the startups will be able to accelerate on their scale up pace. And the thirdly, by working closely with the fintech assistant program, which is a national program directed by the Financial Supervisory Commission in Korea. We provide some of the governmental support programs, such as a free office availability at the WeWork locations so that startups could save up on their office rentals, and other types of the um, government assistance programs where we'll also be a member of, we meaning the BNK, and they will provide certain financial and non-financial assistance to the startups in the program. The way we kind of go about in terms of how we select how we organize is basically and myself are the program director, and that I am in charge of both basically the accelerating the teams that are in the program. In terms of evaluation, we work with BNK Financial Group, we call Fintech Co-op Council, which comprise of the working members from the respective BNK Financial Group companies. And then we will evaluate the applicants together. And then based on the lab director's recommendation, as well as from the inputs of the BNK Fintech Co-op Council, we'll come up with a short list of the teams for final evaluation. And then we'll go through the final evaluation process together, typically on the Zoom, given that we are looking for startups all over the country, not necessarily just in Busan area. So it's actually open to everybody, even outside of Korea. If they're interested in entering Korean market, certainly we'll also will explore that opportunities together with the BNK Financial Group. And so we will also help them to enter the Korean market and also to scale up their operation in Korea. Certainly just a little hint would be, that given that vast majority of people at BNK are not international speakers, I highly recommend that whoever wants to be in the program from outside of Korea, do hire local rep person who can handle the local communications and logistics. This is sort of the quick pictures, but what this tells you is that we actually have a fintech lab on the WeWork office at the Busan IFC Tower, which is the landmark tower. Beautiful, I think it's like 45-story high building. And that facility is actually owned by the Busan Metropolitan City. And we have a lab there, which the BNK actually has rented out the entire floor for the program. And the BNK Fintech Lab actually started the pre-trial period, actually started as early as June. Officially, the program started in December of, I'm sorry, officially the program started in December of 2019. The 2020 program actually started with a second batch. First batch started in December through June. And the second batch started in July, August through the May of this year. And then the third batch just started in May and then ended just yesterday. What we offer here, as I mentioned, that the biggest sort of the carrot is that explore the business and the collaboration and some sort of revenue generating opportunities with the BNK affiliates. We also provide the space for virtually free. I think there's enough of governmental programs that give you enough financial assistance to pay for yourself. And then third of the leg of our offering is the third component is to support you through one-on-one mentoring and the advisory from the acceleration program direct to myself. And then we also happen to be located in the Busan, which is designated as has been designated as a blockchain regulation-free zone, which allows a lot of the blockchain-based companies to try and test and try their products in Busan without concerns for the regulations. This is the basically the quick snapshot of the BNK Financial Holding. The total asset size of financial holding on an aggregate is about $100 billion. It's Korea's largest regional bank holding group. As you may know, there are 5 nationwide banking groups in Korea based in Seoul. And then outside of those 5 banks are then followed by the regional bank holding companies. And the Busan, the BNK is the largest among the regional bank holding groups. And it's comprised of the 2 commercial banks, Busan Bank and Gyeongnam Bank, and then 1 capital company, which is a basically provide all kinds of personal loans, car loans, loans to the small, medium-sized enterprises and merchants. So basically, they're not taking out any deposits. They raise money through the capital bond offering and capital calls, and they use the money to finance these personal and consumers, as well as the small, medium enterprise companies. And then there's a BNK Securities, which is a brokerage firm. BNK Security actually focus primarily on the institutional segments of the market. They avoid consumer side. They don't have the extensive branch network, unlike their bigger competitors or peers. So they focus on institutional sides. And then you have a BNK Savings Bank, which is basically a offshot from the Busan Bank, focusing on the primarily the personal loans and some loans to the small size merchants. And then you have a BNK System, which is in-house IT system service provider for banking services and financial services for the BNK Financial Holding. We work with both local and overseas VCs and accelerator partners, and to look for the opportunities for some of the companies in our program to seek some other opportunities in terms of venture funding, or to look for growth opportunities outside of Korea. Unfortunately, since we took this program has started, we were that was the beginning of the global pandemic, which really has made very difficult for local program participants in the program to look for opportunities outside of Korea for that reason. So that part of the collaborative efforts have been put on hold until that we have a better clarity on the when this whole thing is gonna be open with better, more accommodating surroundings as more people get vaccinated. This is sort of the quick the process. The process basically start with the initial assessment, where we actually either myself will go out and reach out to some potential applicants for encouraging to apply, and I usually, if they're interested in, then we'll engage in a private one-on-one meeting and discussions. that will be followed by my personal evaluation. And then if I feel that they have right resources and capabilities and right business model, then I will then put it on the recommendation list. And so everybody, either through the public notice or private screening, gets all put into the one pot. And then we will then evaluate the company based on their business model, service model, their core competency, and the founder or management assessment. And then once we once they're accepted to the program, then we will typically classify whether they are pre-PMF or pre-revenue or post-PMF. PMF stands for product market fit, or post-revenue. And then depending on which stage they are in, we will then custom tailor-made our mentoring program accordingly. And then we'll then look for the business collaboration opportunities with the BNK affiliates. We also look for fundraising opportunities as well as strategic partnerships outside of BNK through the program director and our network partners. And then typically we will, as I mentioned, that we also provide certain mentoring lectures and seminars, and also the networking events, which we like to do, but again, for the third batch, because of the deepening problems with respect to the social distancing, the networking event has been very difficult. Hopefully that with the reopening of Korea in coming November, I hope that networking part of the program will become much more frequent, and then so we can really get to meet people and then do some business network. This is a snapshot of the second batch that ended in May this year. Started, as I mentioned, they started around September last year, and then for 6 months. And we had 19 companies, I'm sorry, 18 companies. And then in terms of their business areas were the open banking service, data portability, InsurTech, the residential property valuation, and the underwriting, combined with RPA, which stands for robotic process automation. We also looked at there was one company also provides a real estate investment opportunities in the US residential markets for Korean investors. There was also the online logistics and shipping platform for trucks and enterprise. Busan being the home of the Korea's largest and the world's eighth largest ship port. Busan has a lot of local industries in the distribution and logistics. Another main industry that Busan has is tourism. And the third one is the shipbuilding, given that we have a lot of ships coming in and out of the Busan port. So the shipbuilding in the Gyeongnam province, which is a place where the major shipyards like Samsung and Daewoo Hyundai are located. And then we also have in our program the online FX remittance and payment provider. We also had an online video editing platform player based in Busan. We also had a HR recruiting and management platform mainly for both for full-timers and the part-timers. This company was actually based in Busan as well. Blockchain, aquatic product distribution, warehousing, again, based in Busan, using blockchain technology based on the Ethereum platform protocol. We also had an online apparel wholesale market platform. They were based in Seoul. The reason we brought them on was because they were actually their focus mainly was on the payment and invoicing. Instead of there's basically the retailers and wholesalers, and in the traditional marketplace, people were basically exchanging papers, in invoices in papers, and caused a lot of the accounting errors and the settlement issues. So they actually digitized the entire invoicing and payment process. And so we thought there will be some banking element. We explored the opportunity with BNK Capital. Digital assets, STOs. This was we had two STOs actually. One was based in Singapore, focusing on the real estate. Another one was actually focusing on the green ships. They were actually based in Germany. And both companies actually gotten their capital markets licensing from their respective financial regulator. They were trying to explore opportunities outside of Singapore and Germany respectively, and came on our doors through by reading our notice for the second batch, or the personal contacts through my network. And then we also had an online trading platform for non-listed stocks, which, as you know, is growing very rapidly, given that we have about 24 unicorns in Korea. So you can imagine the size of that non-listed stock trading is really growing along with the rise of the unicorns out of Korea. ESG, data collection, analysis, and rating service. Again, this is a taking advantage or leveraging the global trends toward the greener, more socially responsible, and environmentally friendly world. And so we actually also looked at opportunities by seeing if the bank holding company could really help to propagate those sort of programs to their clients and customers in their region. And then BNPL for thin filers, which I think is also a very interesting proposition in Korea. And so we looked at that to see whether there is an angle for banks or the non-banking affiliates of BNK to see what are we missing here, because this is mainly targeting toward the thin filers, and so they want to explore the opportunity. So this was the second batch. Let me explain to you. This is the one that we just finished yesterday, September 30th. We had 19 companies, and let me explain to you who they are. Waste collection and a subscription basis. This is a personal waste, household waste. And in Korea, we actually, everybody who lives apartments, particularly if they have to dispose of any, for example, anything that's sizable, like closets or desks, chairs, you have to do it by yourself. You have to put a tag, and then you have to register with the apartment management office, and then you have to bring that thing to their designated area, and you still have to pay fee too for processing it. What they're doing here is they will basically take all the hassle out of the customer's hands. They will pick those stuff at your door. They will handle the rest, and you can subscribe this on a monthly basis, or and then you can do that. They also, as you know, in Korea, we actually everybody is responsible for disposing their garbages every week, and for singles, as you know, Korea, we have about 20% of Korea's entire households are single residents. And so for those who are singles who have to go to work, they find very difficult to dump their personal junks every day, every week in the designated time. So what these guys are doing is they'll, again, take the pain away from you, and they'll collect your personal garbage every day, and they'll handle it for you. So which I thought was very interesting, given that people are moving toward a more convenient lifestyle, and also given that we have a rising number of singles living in cities. Number two, flower wholesale trading is a classic situation where both retailers and wholesalers rely on the papers instead of computers for selling and buying. People actually physically go to the flower marketplace to buy. So what they're doing is they will try to digitize everything like the e-commerce. Third one is OCR. It's very common processing, given that we are reading everything on a digital basis on the tablets, and still a lot of the documents actually still are in paper. So this is the company that specializes in the OCR engine solution. We have a real estate asset security offering based on blockchain. In other words, why do you have to invest billions of dollars to buy and sell? Why can we fractionalize the asset ownership of the buildings by securitizing the buildings and by giving everybody very small stake? So you can buy stake in the building with only $10,000, buy 1% of the building. And they actually gotten the green light from the Korean FSC to do this. It took a lot of efforts. And we have a sandbox program which allows a lot of startups to bypass the existing laws and regulations to offer their services. And this company actually gotten the sandbox allowance, and they were able to do so. The angle is very interesting in that they are not focusing on typical commercial building, but they are looking for a building that is sort of need to be rebuilt or redesigned. So they're repurposed. So they'll buy at a relatively cheap price, and they'll bring a construction company to redesign, retrofit our building to meet the needs, and then they will upsell that building to the general consumer investor base by offering fractional shares in the building. And I like the team because they're actually were trying to also solve the gentrification problems. As you know, the tenants, for example, let's say you have a coffee shop chain taking up the first floor and they're doing great. And then after 2 years, which is a typical term for the lease, you have to pay up the rents, or you just have to go find another place. And so in order to solve that problem, they thought that by offering a little bit of the shares in the building to the tenants will also actually end up owning the bit of the upsides, so that the whole problems associated with the gentrification could partly resolve through this process, which I thought was a very noble thing. Fulfillment, we have a logistic company focusing on the SME fulfillment functions. Again, they are based in Busan. Same reason, there's a lot of very strong local startups in Busan focusing on the fulfillment, logistics, and shipping. Blockchain, aquatic product distribution, and inventory tracking solution is a kind of mouthful, but they again based in Busan. Three guys who work for the Nordic aquatic engineering firm and decide to start their own. In the standard market, they have engineering talents, and this is one way to preserve the water pollution, because you are actually using the recycled water as opposed to um, getting the ocean water every day from the ocean, sucking in and then dropping with all kinds of the fishery waste, which creates a lot of environmental pollution in the open sea setting. We have a company doing social investing, like a common stock in the US. They're trying to do the same thing in Korea. I like that concept, given that Korea is very socially viral and engaging community. I thought this is the one way to do it. Another one that we also looked at was refrigerated online IoT fitted refrigerator container rental and sale program. Basically, they're providing the platform that comes with IoT fitted refrigeration containers, mainly targeting to the food industries and the food chain restaurants who actually needs extra space. And instead of trying to build their own warehouse, you could just rent 20 TUs or the 40 TUs and then just install it, and for 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. And then once that, they will take it back. So it's a win-win for everybody. And it's also IoT. So you can actually track temperature, you can track the theft, you can also, put all kinds of the monitoring, so to preserve the quality of the product that you're putting in the containers, like a temperature. We have a location-based tracking and monitoring of banking services. And as you know, as the banking service become more mobile, bankers also have to become mobile, right? And so they have to meet their customers outside of their branch. And the problem is, under the regulations in Korea, there are certain compliance that the process you have to follow when you are conducting business outside of the branch. And so you need to track the location of your each employee of the bank. And that's what they're doing. And so I thought was very unique application given the regulatory requirements as well as location technology. Very precise. So they're not using GPS. They're using the modern GPS. They're using the not only GPS but also what you call all the mobile phones, mobile network operators have the transmitters stations located in each city, each borough, or each block, and so they also use that plus the GPS, and then they also use Wi-Fi network to really precisely locate your locations. So their error for margin error is about 2 to 3 meter. So it's very close. And then you have online automated receivable-based factoring for SME online sellers. In other words, you have a lot of these sort of online marketplace, like Amazon's of the world. Problem is, if you're the online third-party seller, from the time you sell your product till you collect the cash from the sale of your product on their platform takes as many as 45 days, sometimes 60 days. So for them to wait for 45 days to collect their cash is long, particularly for small size merchants. So what they're doing is basically factoring for that program on an online basis. Highly automated underwriting process. They're growing like hell. I really like the business. I like the team. They're based in Seoul. And in fact, they're going to work with the BNK Capital, who's going to provide the line of credit to them. It's easy money for BNK Capital. This company will do all the work, all the hardware work. But it's not hard work, actually, because they developed the system. It's highly automated. So for them, it's easy. But for the banks or the capital firms to develop this kind of underwriting programs on a software and running on a platform basis, you don't even want to start that conversation with them because their eyes will just roll out. And then you have the RIS company I mentioned to you, luggage picking and storage. Given that Busan is a major tourism attraction site, and a lot of Koreans travel to Busan during the summer, and because it's there's a very famous beach called Haeundae. A lot of Koreans go there for raw fish, for sashimi, and so this is certainly a logistics service provider. We have FX, offshore money remittance service. Very interesting. They have a strategic partnerships with Visa, and they are offering a basically FX foreign exchange fee waiver. So they don't charge anything. They make money off on the merchant fee, which I thought was very unique. Because every time I go around the world, I spend my Korean credit cards on in Thailand, for example, in Tokyo. I always notice there's about 2% charge by credit card companies. And for a small amount, I don't care. But what if you're spending, a few $1,000s per trip, and that can add up, and they actually offer the service for free of charge. And they're not going to charge any FS fee, and they will just collect the money from the merchants, and they issue credit cards and then prepaid cards. That's what they're doing now. We have also the few analytics company, machine learning based companies I mentioned, and then we have a few delivery and logistics companies. We also have a Korean version of the Square, which is a mobile terminal payments. And interestingly, in Korea, still a vast majority of merchants are using the non-smartphone, non-tablet based credit card terminals, the traditional portable terminals. So they are actually using smartphones. And I think that's just Korea is one of the interesting cases where, the in certain aspect, Korea is far ahead of the curve, but in certain segments, there are laggards. And this is one area where I think that the company saw that, why can Korean merchants use Square-like solutions? So they are basically coming up with an app, and basically you can basically download the app and convert your smartphone to the payment terminals. And lastly, we also have an insurance tech company that does a lot of the personal insurance evaluation, analytics, and recommendations. So this was the third batch. In terms of the little PR, during the second batch, we helped the 18 companies raise total about a little less than 20 billion in Korean won, which is about $17 million for the second batch. For the third batch, during the program, some companies in the 19 companies, some of the 19 companies were able to raise a little over $21 million during the program. Usually that's sort of a check mark where you say, well, we help them to grow and prosper and build certain strategic initiatives for them to go out and be able to complete the fundraising. This is the list this is the list of the areas that the BNK groups members have requested that they are interested in exploring additional opportunities with the fintech players. So I got the list, and this is the sort of the raw data, literally the just English translation of what they asked. They're looking for in terms of the partnerships or collaboration with the fintech. It goes from the FX money remittance payment. Different departments have different requests, so you have to look at this from their angle. Digital business unit looking for digital payments, and so if you are in the payment space, certainly I recommend. If you also are in the business of subscription service, whether it's payment mainly, because you have to have a certain angle, this will be good fit. Personal loan based on personal lifestyle data. Again, AI-based loan underwriting. Asset management. I think what they meant is asset management in terms of the bank assets, and I don't think it really talks about too much about the investment management per se. This is more of the savings bank accounts and what I call the the preservation of your of a bank savings. So this is probably a sort of a what we call the behavioral saving product, sort of with a primary motivation goal. So hey, listen, I want to save $1,000 for my next vacation. So you set certain targets, and then you probably encourage them to save that kind of money through the bank product. So that's probably what we mean here. Public data, again, any kinds of company that deals with the public data that have certain financial relevance, they will be open to it. Open API, that's just the defaults. Typically, they will look for open API players. Certain companies, actually, you'll be surprised, they actually do have only the very traditional server-based solutions, and they got nothing in terms of the SaaS. So they're very difficult to do this on an API. So if you're a traditional solution provider using the centralized server systems, it will be very difficult here. So you have to have at least a SaaS-based solutions. Animations, metaverse, again, they probably want to just see how the bank services can work in the cyber world. So that's also they are looking for. On the digital customer service, call center data analytics, artificial intelligence, contact center, speech to text and text to the speech, either way. And then auto call systems, credit cards, payment, offline to online, in-car payment, cryptocurrency, and blockchain, all in the context of credit cards. Okay, and then financial planning, data visualization, meaning the branch. This is again talks about a lot of the. This is a financial planning within the bank, not for consumers. This is financial planning departments of the bank, and they were asking, hey, listen, in order for us to perform our employees and branch, we need a certain internal data analytics. So to the extent that you provide any kinds of performance software for tracking and monitoring the branch and employee performance with respect to the banking applications in the bank settings, that they will be interested in talking to you. And then the wealth management team ask us about the whether they are interested in doing more CRM based on a mobile. As I mentioned, as customers become more mobile, right? Just as the banks are becoming branchless, they want to be able to do customer relationship management on a mobile basis. They want to send and communicate with the customers through messaging and the chatting service, and they want to have a customer, basically relationship management software that runs on the mobile and basis. There's a lot of global CRM vendors operating in Korea. I think they are looking for local vendors as opposed to global vendors, or somebody who can actually provide very strong local support for them. So again, If you know the player, and if you're the player looking for a way to come in Korea, I certainly recommend that you work with a local partner for that effort. Or if you're a local CRM provider with the banking applications, certainly recommend you to apply for the program. And then this is a Gyeongnam Bank, which is the second bank again. They were asked, the digital strategy team asked for the digital marketing and ads, payments, and e-commerce. Again, this is all part of their trying to expand their footprints, O2O service, online to offline, data and analytics, BN Capital. Actually, even the BNK Capital is part of the BNK Financial Fintech Group, but they're among the top 5 capital companies in Korea in terms of asset size. The asset size is about 4 or 5 trillion Korean wons, about 4, so $3.5 to $4 billion in total asset size, a little over $4 billion, I think. And they're based in Seoul. Interestingly, the other guys are all based in. And out of the 5, the BNK Capital, BNK Investment Securities are based in Seoul. The rest is all headquartered in Busan and Changwon. Changwon is about 1 hour drive north of Busan. And then BNK Capital looking for data analytics solution, alternative underwriting, asset valuation. BNK Investment Securities looking for AI-based trading and investment research and management. RPA, My Data, which is basically the another way of Korean version of GDPR service. Anybody who can actually provide data service using in compliance with the GDPR, that will be interesting in talking. Authentication, and then BNK Savings, they're looking for loan underwriting RPA. So this is sort of the laundry list of what they're looking for as the next batch applicants. Unfortunately, the application deadline for the next batch is on the 3rd of October. So you got 2 more days to go. So it's gonna be weekend hell if you don't watch it before then. And if you're still interested in, you're welcome to contact me at I didn't write down my email address here. I'll give you my email address. It's B as in boy, C as in Charlie, HONG as in Hong Kong, at B square, B as in boy, square, dot KR. Okay, let me repeat, PC Hong at B square dot KR will be contact. Send me things, Korean, English, doesn't matter. I'll look it up. Even you are interested in, just let me know. We are starting the deadline is on the 3rd. The program itself will start in mid-October. It ends in the end of February. So, if you watch this video or watch this podcast in early October, I still, you can contact me and I'll tell you what to do. You may be, and then if it's a right fit for us, I'll try to squeeze you in the shortlist. So you can start in mid-October. If that's not doable, we'll still could consider you to join in the program even after the program starts. Because in fact, 2 of the companies in our second batch joined within about 2 weeks after the second batch third batch officially started. So we do, if the companies are very compelling, if they have very interesting products, services that could be of a potential interest to the group, we'll definitely look at it. So there is no, there's a deadline, and we like to stick with it. But at the same time, it's not it's not something set in the stone, okay? And so we do look at some exceptional cases on a case-by-case. Okay, so this sort of wraps up my long, but um, sort of description of the BNK Fintech Lab. If you have any questions about the program or um, about, or if you're interested in coming to Korea, if you're outside of Korea, if you have interesting products that you think may have present some opportunities for the either BNK or fintech players or the consumers in Korea, feel free to reach us. We'll be happy. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Okay, thank you very much. All right, over.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Michael. It's a very impressive portfolio. And I think we lost a few people along the way now that we hit 5 o'clock, but Tia is still on. And I've unmuted you. I've allowed you to talk here. If you want to ask a question live, it's the three of us here, all among friends.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm the only one. Okay, good. Thank you, Michael, for the presentation. Yes, indeed, it was a very impressive portfolio. And actually, I noticed that some of the company, they are doing things quite similar to what we are doing at Quant. So, which is working on the OCR, NLP, and also ESG data. So, I'm interested by this program, but I have a question. So, what are the requirements for the members of the program in regards to the physical presence in Busan and the the attendance
there is no
at the office?
physical
Because
requirement.
so
yeah, none of the members had to be physically present in Busan. We don't have that requirement. It's optional for them if they want to take up a little space up on our fintech lab floor. They're welcome to do so. For example, some companies want to do business with the BNK, so they want to have our basically parking place, right, to dump their stuff. So for that, we can accommodate a small space for them. So, but there is no real requirement for them to be to physically be there in Busan. In fact, everybody basically participates in the program on a remote basis. That's sort of the new mantra, new modus operandi these days. So we are quite comfortable with that. In fact, from the very beginning, we made it very clear as a program director. I requested and I demanded, in fact, that I asked them, so do you want to work with good fintech companies around the country, or do you want to work with sub-good fintech companies only from Busan? The answer was very clear. They said, we want to work with the good quality players, regardless of the location.
Okay, that's great. And also another question, at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned about some financial assistance for the members. And so can you be more specific, or what are you referring to?
Well, starting with, there's, if you want to take up office space in the BNK Fintech Lab, we'll, subsidize up to 80%, and then, banks will probably put up a little more money, so you end up paying very little. If not free, but you pay very little. And then there is also by basically being with the BNK and being here, it opens a lot of opportunities for you to be exposed to in terms of the because BNK also finance a lot of the exhibitions and the conferences, and they usually will allow you to have a booth in these conferences free of charge because BNK is footing the bill as one of the co-sponsors. So they usually have some open free slots that they can give that to their sort of the favorite fintech companies. And so you also have the advantage of that. And then in terms of the other advantages being in the BNK is that given that there's very little fintech companies in Busan, there's a lot of incentives for for Busan City to attract talents. And so they all, to the extent that if you are willing to open a branch in Busan, they'll throw in a lot of the incentives, because Busan is really trying to create the startup-friendly place. In other words, as you know, all the young, smart Busan guys, when they finish high school, they all go to Seoul because they want to go to school in Seoul so they can get a better job in Seoul. And there is very little, other than BNK and a few government-owned institutions, there aren't any sizable employers in Busan City per se. We don't have global companies headquartered in Busan either. So that's the really problem in Busan. So they really will throw in some incentives for that.
Yes, indeed. When I worked for Macquarie, I used to have some very brilliant guy coming from Postec, and they are just really good and much higher than all the average Australian that we had. So I have a last question regarding the numbers. You show that your second batch and third batch, you have about 20 companies, and then those companies raise about 20 or 30 billion. So which means that if I get the number correctly, it means that each company, like on average.
Not every, some got, not everybody, because it's an evolutionary process, survival of the fittest. So out of the batch, some do better than others, and some don't need money because we have companies in the batch that there was no shortage of capital. They just finished the recent fundraising, and they were looking for commercial opportunities to do business with BNK. That was their primary motivation. For some, along the way, as they getting incubated by us, they came to us and say, Mr. Ong, can you help us to put together our funding strategy? And I say, well, in order to do reasonable funding, we need to really reconfigure your entire strategy. So we go back to the ground zero, and then we start from there. And because as I share my LinkedIn with Norbert, I have an extensive background in both startups and global financial services. I worked for startups, and then as a co-founder, and then I was also senior executives at the global financial firms at the very senior level, at the regional level, not just in Korea, but so I had that sort of the bandwidth, and also I was on the buy side and sell side too. So I understand what the buy side guys are looking for when they're investing in. I was also CFO of some of the companies, so I know what to do because I raised tons of money from both small VCs as well as from guys like SoftBank, 800-pound gorilla guys. We're looking for $300 million, and that's different game. So I've done both ends of the spectrum. So that's what I do usually when I help these guys. And typically that's the reason why BNK has actually asked me to be a program director personally. They said, we want you to be the personally, handling all this program because, when they took on the program, they really, the program was in a bit of disarray. They actually brought in the WeWork. I'm not saying anything critical, but I'm just conveying what they told me, which is that they work with the WeWork Fintech Lab program, partnership program, and they were not very happy with the outcome in terms of selection and program running of the program, because the first batch was actually done by the WeWork Fintech Lab team out of Busan or out of Korea, and BNK wasn't happy at all. So they basically, little over 5 months into the program, they stopped working with the WeWork. They cut the deal. They decide to work with some other accelerator, and when B Square was appointed, I actually was pitched in by BNK, by the B Square as the man who's going to handle this program. And I don't work for B Square. Actually, I have my own company called Red Herring, and I do my own investment. I've been doing angel investing both in fintech and non-fintech for, and for, since 2002. So I goes back almost 20 years. So, they asked me to do this, and BNK felt that we were the best team because I brought the expertise and experience, and B Square, based in Busan, they feel comfortable working with Busan. It's like Japan. If you're from Kyoto, they like to work with the Kyoto people. If they were from Osaka, they like to work with Osaka. Same thing, Busan. If you're from, they prefer to work with the team from Busan. So B Square was based in Busan, so they got the deal. I was pitched in as a program director, and that was a part of requirement that I run the program. Because they felt that they want to put the program in the hands of more experienced people, so that at least they won't repeat the same mistakes they made with the rework.
Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, and I found the achievement very impressive. Mostly in such a short time, succeeding to raise such a nice money for the companies, for the good startups. Thank you very much, Michael.
No problem. It's not me. I just chose the right people, right team. As long as you choose right team, it's like the HR policy. Hire the right people, then it's easier. The problem is you start with bad apples, and that's very tough. But if you choose the good apples to start with, life is easier that way. And so that's what I did. Every batch, we actually have more applicants than we could take. So we have to do a lot of pruning and in the evaluation process. When I do my private meetings, I spend a lot of time actually pre-screening before I call. I make a call. So I do a lot of data search. I do background research on the companies before my assistant, the gal, she's a manager. She's actually reaching out to them, but I usually tell her who to talk to. I give her a short list of people, and that short list is actually based on some research of companies and my understanding of the industry dynamics. So, and so I have a pretty good feel for the needs. I think that the area that I feel very interesting is, particularly on the upcoming batch, is it's amazing. Every time I look at the batch, I say, well, is there anything new on the next batch? And 5 months later, when I go through the landscape and look at the list of companies and information and data, I am pleasantly surprised that there are new group of companies that I didn't know that existed 6 months ago. They are working. They are getting picked up by local media, and they're still under the surface. But that's I do a lot of data research based on various data sources, and also I get inquiries from the local accelerators who will share with me that they looked at the deal, they liked the team, but they didn't know, so they asked me to take a look. So that's what the network helps me to.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Michael, just to run a very quick question, continuing from what Shia asked, basically. One is, out of the investment amount, does BNK invest themselves through BNK Capital, or is it sourced through your network?
Answer is actually the fundraising is combination of so far, actually, just to be frank, the BNK, there's a venture arm, CVC arm of the BNK. They have not invested in any of the second or third batch, even though I strongly encourage them to do so. And their CVC arm is actually not real fintech focused. They're more of a, they bought this local venture capital firm about a little less than 2 years ago. And they're still in the process of converting them to become a CVC. They are not real CVC of the BNK. In fact, if you look at their portfolio, vast majority of the portfolio is non-fintech.
Well, investing into the local economy, then presumably, right?
Yeah, or yeah. So that's what they're doing. And then so the answer to your question is where the sources of funds VCs come from. It's a combination of some of my networks, and then also the company themselves actually knew it, and I helped them to basically along the program put together the sort of the funding strategy, put together the deck, do a lot of fine tuning on their pitching, and then and so there are always some elements of my involvement, either at directly or indirectly in the process of fundraising. Interestingly, at the end of the third batch, we actually, the BNK took a survey to send out those questionnaires to the 19 companies asking for the feedbacks, and we didn't know about it. I mean, we knew there was going to be a survey, and when they collect the answers, actually BNK shared the answers with us. And so I found out 3 weeks ago what the feedback was, and that's very important because, it's like a professors teaching students, and at the end of the semester, you want to get honest feedback so that you can improve on where you could improve. And the feedback was, 90% of the feedback was that we like Michael Hong, but we wish that BNK were a little more forthcoming in terms of collaboration or investments, and which I knew. So they're not really working hard. Now they are getting this kind of feedback. So the BNK is now, at least they're reacting to that feedback. They're not sort of saying, well, who cares, right? But they're actually reacting to it. So they are now reaching out to the selected companies and say, listen, we want to meet with you. So that's been good, positive. So I think the next batch, the BNK will be more proactive, which is good because you start with a minus and you're moving into positive, which is good. I'd rather start with a negative and going into positive as opposed to start with a plus and moving to minus.
Yeah, and operating with the feedback, right? That's a skill or a maturity that you need to have as an individual or as an organization as well, and needs to be developed. And if they take this constructively, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so I think that on the next batch, I think that the venture capital arm will also probably respond accordingly too, because the holding company level at the executive level are pushing the envelope now.
Right.
Which is good.
That's where we can compare notes endlessly, because very similar to your role and how you describe BNK, they're like some CVCs of even like large Japanese banks who have hired really exceptional private equity venture capitalists to lead their and reshape their CVC activities, but then the bank as a whole, right, changing that culture to make it more constructively engaging. It's a hard task, and the single person to do that can be the spark, but the organization needs to catch fire then at some point.
It's an aircraft carrier. Trust me, it's not a speedboat.
And one thing you don't know about me, to close it off here, my first sashimi ever, I've eaten at that beach in Busan.
Oh, great! And you didn't get sick, right?
No, I did. It was great. I mean, it was that was like in 1994, early 95, long time ago.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Busan back then and Busan today is night and day. The whole Haeundae beach area. I remember. I wasn't in Korea back in 94, 95 because I was living in Hong Kong. But I visited Busan when I came to Korea and to run the G Capital operation. But even back then and today, there's no realms of there is no, those we call the street foods that I'm sure you had in the beachfront of the building. They're all gone now. They all are now part of a mall, or they did away with all the sort of street food vendors and move everybody into the building. And so for the and mainly for the sanitary reason. So I understand that because people get food sick, and there's always complaints about it. But you kind of miss the old days, because those old days were a little crazy and a little more. People who grew up in Singapore and Thailand, they like the street foods, right?
Yes, the hawker stalls, absolutely.
Yeah, but we don't have that anymore, and that's the old days. Yeah, but still the food is quite good. The seafood in Busan, I mean, they're fresh. So, and that the sashimi in Seoul is made differently than one from Japan. We don't season them. We eat raw fish really off from the boat, literally. Whereas in Japan, sashimi they still put into fridge, whatever, for little seasoning, or we call little, before they become consumed. So the taste and texture are a little different. And I like both. It's like, who do you like better, mom and dad? Well, I don't know. I like both. Okay? I can't tell the difference. I mean, I like one for one reason, another one for another different reason.
So. No, listen, so thank you very much for this. I hope 2022 will be a travel year again. So
Korea, hopefully we can
get on the list, and I'll stop by Busan as well.
Yeah, I'll do the same thing. And also anybody who is listening from Korea, please feel free to drop me an email, and then we can go from there.
That's good. We'll put your LinkedIn URL and your email into the YouTube description so people can find you easily.
Thank you very much. All right. Appreciate all the work.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks, Chair. You too. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.